Julia Fisher, and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree, bringing you news of what God is doing in Israel today. And it may surprise you to hear that Muslim people in East Jerusalem are hearing about Jesus. My guest today is called Sam. He was born into an Arab family, although he later found out that his roots are Jewish, and was brought up in a village just outside Jerusalem. In this, the first of two programs, he starts by describing his early life and his journey out of replacement theology, a belief that says the church has replaced Israel in God's plan of things, and then how he started to befriend Muslim people.
I was born in Jerusalem. I grew up in a little town away from Jerusalem. It's the only Christian village. I mean, with the Christian, Catholic, and the Greek Orthodox. And my grandma opened her house for the ministry. She was the only believer for 35 years, and that's how the whole family came to the Lord.
Through your grandma?
Yeah, through my grandma from my mom's side. God bless grandmas.
Absolutely. So how did your life continue? What was life like for you as a young man growing up in Israel?
Yeah, I finished my high school. Then I moved back to Jerusalem to continue studies because I have to continue studying. Then I went actually to study theology in Bethlehem. I lived in Jerusalem, but I was going in Bethlehem to study theology. I grew up in replacement theology. Then God changed everything.
Just explain, Sam, what replacement theology means to you.
Yeah, replacement theology means that God finished with Israel. They have nothing more. Everything now belongs to the church, and the Jewish people is not his chosen people, which is not right. Actually, the Bible is clear, and God chose his people, Israel. He chose Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
But you were brought up with that understanding that God no longer needed Israel to fulfill his plans.
Yes. I grew up in that mentality that God finished actually with Israel. No more for Israel, while the Bible teaches that all Israel will be saved in the book of Romans. So anyways, I struggled a lot, but the Lord was great with me. He was working in my heart, changing all my theology, what I grew in.
How difficult was that? Because you were surrounded by people who believed in replacement theology. So you must have been very alone, very isolated.
I was very isolated. I was blind because they don't teach you the truth. They don't teach you that Israel is still from God, and God never finished with it. Even Paul said that in Romans 11. So they don't teach you that, but always there was something missing. I feel it missing. But when I joined King of Kings, there where I started to think about the real theology.
Now, King of Kings is, just explain what King of Kings is, Sam.
Yeah, King of Kings community in Jerusalem is a church, has been started almost 42 years ago, and it's the first church that was serving between the Messianic. That's not the first, but one of the oldest church that is serving between the Messianic. So when I joined them, actually I joined them to work with media department because I studied media production. And there I was listening to all the preaching and the teaching, and I was saying, wow, there's something wrong with what I believe. Because I remember first year when I joined, there was a play that we were doing here in the pavilion called The Covenant. And it was talking about God's promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whole story until Yeshua came. Yeshua is Jesus. Then the establishing of Israel. So I was filming that, but it was hard for me because at the end they playing the Israeli anthem. So everybody standing, it was hard for me. What? They are my enemy. How I can stand? How I can respect that? It was there, but when I start to look and search and listening for all the teaching, things changed inside of me, such as no, there is something wrong. Uh, God started to open things uh, in my heart because they focus with the replacement theology more at the new covenant. They didn't look at the old covenant a lot. So God started to deal with me from the new covenant. Like, for example, when God told Joseph to take Mary and baby Jesus to Egypt. So when he came back in book of Matthew, before he came back, when the angel revealed to him, he told him, take the baby and his mother to the land of Israel. That was highlight for me. In the new covenant, God says it's land of Israel. How come I was blind? Lots of questions such this question came. Why they don't teach us the truth? Then slowly I discovered, unfortunately, that replacement theology based on mainly fundraising business. Like, we have people to fund us, so let's do that and say replacement theology, and we are Palestinians, and that will support our mission, blah blah blah. And actually, it's not biblical. It started um, the whole idea started with Augustine, I guess, with the Byzantine period. So from there they adopted. But before that, the whole church, and actually the church itself, when it started from a group of Jewish people. The disciples were Jewish. The Holy Spirit came on Jewish people, and there was Arabs. And actually, the Arabs is not what we know today. When we speak or say Arabs, our mentality goes to the Muslim world. Actually, biblically and with history, Arabs are the Christians who was living in this region, such as the Petra in Jordan, the city Petra, who was living there was Nabateans, and Nabateans was a Christian at that period. But what's happened that when Islam came, actually it captured the whole culture, and they adopt their culture to them, and they killed the people, and they took their culture, and they changed the history. So that's why now people think Arabs are Muslims. In fact, simple question we can ask: if somebody from the United States who got married to a Philippine lady, do you think their children will be like from India? No. Why is that? Because they are not make sense. This is exactly what's happened with Abraham. Abraham is from Haran, Iraq area today, and Hagar from Egypt. She's Egyptian. So how come their children become Arabs? How Ishmael become Arab? So lots of changing of history and lots of questions came. So God started to work in my mind a lot about these things. Then I reached to a point that, wait a minute, there is something wrong and I have to drop that theology. When I start to believe and I start to read, and actually, who will bless Israel, God will be blessing. That's one of the promises. We can apply it to our lives. It's in book of Romans says that we are grafted in. We are not the root. We are grafted in. So, yeah. So I simply dropped that theology and I just accepted what is the real.
How long did that process take for you to understand?
Almost 2 years.
It's a long time.
2 years of struggling, because I studied also theology with replacement theology people. So it took me like 2 years to take out what I grew up with, all my.
Yes.
So it took me that time, and I was studying a lot and trying to figure out here and there, and takes time.
So God was working on your life, and all the time you were very involved with the King of Kings, this Messianic community in Jerusalem.
Yes.
So how did things develop from there? Because I can remember meeting you a couple of years ago, and you were very, very involved with evangelizing, working amongst Arab people, you are still Muslim people in Jerusalem. Just tell me how that got started, and then we'll talk about how it's developed.
Yeah, so I started actually to do reach outs, prayer walks, prayer meetings, even online at that time before Corona hit the world.
Mm.
So we started to do prayer walks, started to pray in the street with the people, see them, just lay hands on them, pray with them, ask them, try to help them. Of course, with the Corona situation, everything have been changed because distance and masks and people get afraid and stuff. So we start to do things online as much as we can. It's not active as it was before. It's not like powerful as it was before, but still we are in touch with people. We start to do actually also during this period. We did humanitarian aids, distributing food, coupon cards for people. People more now in the media, so we start to produce worship music in Arabic. We start to produce series like in the last Easter, we had a project with my family. Um, we were talking from Palm Sunday until Resurrection Day. Every day we were have like an episode about 15 minutes talking about that day, what's happened on it, and prophecies from the Bible, what's happened on the Old Covenant, how many years they prophesied over that, and how that happened in details. So we're talking a lot about prophecies and trying to show the people Yeshua was a Jew. He was a rabbi, and you should believe in Yeshua. That's the Bible is teaching you, not what the people's giving you.
You've been listening to Sam, an Arab Christian in Jerusalem, sharing his story, and we'll hear more from him on next week's programme. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please visit our website, olivetreefund.org. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.